Hello, everyone. If a website does not load in 3 seconds, the publisher is likely to lose the user. Today, if a publisher has not managed the load time adequately, the bounce rate will shoot up, adversely impacting the revenue. A survey that we recently read about suggests that pages that load within 2 seconds have an average bounce rate of 9%, while the pages that load in 5 seconds see their bounce rates skyrocket to a wholesome 38%. This brings us to today's point of discussion. Speed optimized web pages drive higher revenues. How does this mechanism work? I could not have asked for a better panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming today's panelists for this panel discussion. Karan Jaitapkar, Head of Digital ABP Network. Welcome, Karan.
Hi, everyone.
Mohammad Zulfikul Abram, CTO Lokmat. Hello, Mohammad. Please join us.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Sachin Pawar, Head of Engineering, pingvilla.com. Hello, Sachin. Nice to have you with us today.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Sankalp Sharma, CTO Sportskira. Hello, Sankalp.
Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone. Good to be here.
And Mr. Mark Brocato, VP Engineering, EDGIO. Hello, Mark. Good afternoon.
Everybody. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. To all our attendees, I would request, please key in your questions, and I promise I'll ask them not just at the end of the session, but while the session is going on as well. Now, before we go in deep with our discussion, I want to ask you all a rapid fire question. Did you try to recently read something, click a link maybe while scrolling through Facebook, and it did not load, and apparently you went off the site and probably read it somewhere else? Sankalp, with you, I would like to start.
Yes, Anirban, unfortunately, it's a very common pattern. I think, but it has reduced than what it used to be earlier. A lot of brands, websites have become extremely conscious about this because this research, I think it's a no-brainer at this point. Everyone understands the scope of this research, the bounce rate research, right? So it makes sense to invest deeply in performance of your platforms.
Correct. Karan, did you have this experience of where you tried to click a link and it did not open? A yes or a no?
Yeah, I will just escape, go to the next possible link and check. Yeah, that's how it is. As a user, we don't have patience. Yeah,
correct.
We want to read it right away, and I think that's where everything lies. And managing that back-click not being pressed on your site is what we are talking here. So that's
absolutely
that's as simple as that.
Mohammad, what's your point of view? Did you experience this where you tried to open a website and it didn't open?
Yeah, I did. And obviously as a user, we are spoiled for choices and we kind of hit a backlink and go to the next one,
Correct.
When we are searching for a happening news or something like that.
Correct. Recently, I read somewhere Virat Kohli has been dropped and I tried clicking that, but it never opened. And I didn't read that news, thankfully. Sachin, what's your view?
Yes, it happened while I was in fringe area. Happens. There are multiple factors. Maybe weak signals, 2D network, page are not optimized, or heavy content on pages.
Correct.
It happens.
Correct. And we'll discuss all 4 aspects, I promise. Mark, did you experience this problem?
I like the last answer the best. Yeah, I feel like it's a gradient of it's not black and white, whether it loaded or didn't load. It's the assault of pop-ups and slowness and my fans spinning up because the site's poorly built. That is the thing that's most annoying, I think, about the modern web.
Correct. Another question that I have, this is again, I quickly want you to summarize and in 1, 2, or 3 words at best, explain what, according to you, make a website experience delightful. Karan.
I guess I think the most important thing for me is content viewability. I think I come from a very monetization angle because I take care of tech as well as money here. So
correct.
So for me, ad viewability is later versus content viewability, and that is where everything lies. And that is why I make sure that at least my first FCP is right. Make sure the FCP is right. That's it. And I think after that, I think a 3-second load time, I think, which is a thing which everyone wants to achieve. It's very difficult with all the ad sets, but at least within that 3 seconds, you can load an FCP, which is viable enough for people to hang on rather than click the back button.
Yeah. Thank you, Karan. Mohammad, what according to you makes a website experience very delightful? 1, 2, 3, 4 words.
speed and relevant, and obviously, like as Karan was telling, like I try to make things, whatever is latest, I want to keep that first, and then late and later the ad I kind of load at the later stage, so that the user gets a better experience, reads the content, as well as, like, stays on the page for a more time.
Correct. Sachin?
Yes, I will precisely explain this in 3 points: simple design, quality content, and speed.
Simple design, quality content, and speed. Great.
Right.
Sankalp?
For me, it's prioritizing the primary content and minimalism.
Great.
If these things are nailed, I think it's a delightful user experience.
Great. Mark?
How quickly the layout stopped shifting and how easily my eyes can find the content I want to look at.
Great. To all our attendees today, you all have joined us. Thank you very much. Please share your answer. What do you think makes a website experience delightful? You can have 1, 2, or 3 word answers. Please join us in this discussion. Now I would like to have an opening remark from each one of you. From the point of view of your own publication, how has consumer behavior changed in the last couple of years? And why I say last couple of years, because it's not that far, and yet a lot has happened in the last couple of years. And has that change in behavior also changed expectation, forcing you all to maybe make changes in the offering that you have? Sankal?
Sure. So I think the customers now are extremely snappy and have very short-lived attention span. And this is not a criticism, it's just an observation, because I've been guilty of that as well. So I think brands really need to adapt to that, the shortening attention span. And that's something which is the overarching evidence of we've seen.
Great. Karan, how has consumer behavior changed, and has that also changed the consumer expectation, forcing you to change
I think
your
a lot of shift has happened, especially with COVID now, because of work from home. A lot of shift has happened of mobile viewing on mobile, and since the device is so small and the processing speed is that much only on the browser, I think it has come to the tech part of it, and it's become more relevant from that sense. I think COVID has helped the consumer behavior change much, and for us to respond is important as a tech team. To make sure that delivers on that screen, on that size. As rightly pointed out, your layout can't shift on that mobile. If the layout starts shifting, reading becomes a pain. And you are talking about people who are in a TikTok generation. They don't have the time for you to change their layout, make it set, and then they will read. No, it's not possible. I think it's important that we stress that we don't change much, and make sure readability is at the highest order, especially for media companies.
Great. Sachin, your take?
Yes, mobile platform has become the most popular method of digital news consumption nowadays. Mobile audience is growing at significant rate over time in last few years because of better internet speed and affordable smartphones. The mobile news audience should be seen not as a one homogeneous mass, but as a 2 distinct groups. I will say mobile browser users and mobile app users. Okay. Now I will term as a light users and heavy users. Light users will stick to mobile users. They will come, will read content, will go away. Heavy users will stick to mobile news apps. And users are spending more times on the news apps, and they have a habit to do snacking, obviously of media content. They're always looking for new, fresh text media content. To serve them, we also change strategy to serve content faster using CDN, cloud storage services, and caching technology with obviously optimized pages. And we optimize pages with the help of Google PageSpeed Insights, GT metrics, and Kingdom tools. We also avoided excessive DOM size, and as Karan said, I will extend that we kept the page speed metrics like LCP, FID, CLS, FCP, TTFB in the green range. And we are also trying to serve pages to users in less than 100 milliseconds.
Correct. Great. Mohammed, your opening remarks.
Yes. So, I mean, we, as everybody kind of put forth, we had phenomenal growth in the last 2 years, and the pandemic, we had more than 100% growth, and the wave kind of continuing the habit of the users has changed. Pandemic years drew more people towards digitization. So it made our plans get accelerated, fostering growth. So we had to rework our stack to better it up by improving the speed, viewability, all other metrics what other panelists have put, as well as we improved the efficiency. And also we deployed CDP tools, inferring the intent of the user, serving recommendation with the use of machine learning. So that when the users are in your area, you try to give them what they want at the better speed, so that they stick to us for a longer time.
Correct. Great. I'll tweak the question a little bit for you, Mark. You deal with publishers across the globe. How is expectation from Indian publisher you are dealing with different to, say, those in the UK or US?
It's an interesting question. So I actually feel that India and the US are more similar than countries in Europe, and that both India and the US are very large countries, and the population is dispersed kind of along the perimeter, just like in the US. You have East Coast and West Coast. And so the internet geography is a serious problem for platforms like ours to deal with. Whereas in UK, you can have one pop in London near the airport there, and you cover everybody basically. And some people spill over into Germany. But to be able to get content to the edge of the network so that it's very close to the majority of the readers is a thing that is, it's logistically difficult in these large countries like India and the US.
Great. Thank you, Mark. So now, I would like to know from you, Karan, as head of digital AVP network, what are the factors important for your network to ensure the website is optimized and the load time remains low, as you mentioned, which is very critical?
See, first of all, data preparedness. So we make sure we are discussing earlier as well Tech, that we are headless CMS. So data needs to be pre-prepped, because it is edited, right? So we can pre-prep, cache it, and then load it faster on the remaining browsers through our good front end, which you can develop yourself. But my main three things are: one is your FCP, very clearly. Then there is a time to interaction, and then there's the CLS, right? Three things most important you have to monitor. Everything else you can. The most critical is FCP, first contentful print. You have to make sure that appears nearly 1 or 2 seconds. Otherwise, if that doesn't appear, there's no user roaming. There's a back button. So your FCP has to be, so that has to be a content again, because they are coming for content, not your ad, right? So that's my critical aim. So that helps in monetizing higher for my ATF units, right? Because if people start reading and then the interactive comes in 4 or 5 seconds, and then they can scroll, and then my ATF kicks in, and then the BTF kicks in for higher monetization. ATF and BTF, I mean the ad units plus the unit. And finally, the CLS, because I can't keep on moving our eyeballs on that small screen. It doesn't work. Mobile screens are not meant for reading, actually. And if you start moving them enough, I think you'll tire the user up. So especially with long reading, we want people to read longer so that they wait longer. I think we should have the CLS in place much better. I don't believe in total onload, because I think total onload is a factor of a lot of things which are loading. But I think these three things should actually have a good, highly monetized side. So this is speed figures are very clear for me: FCP, CLS, and in between time to interact. Sorry.
Sure. I'm checking. But meanwhile, Mohammed, can you answer? How do you ensure retention? Isn't it true that the more you retain, the higher the average revenue per user?
First, the page should load faster, and the user should get hooked to the content. And when he is in, obviously, you got to keep the monetization at not too much of jazzy ads. You have to keep it a minimum. Also, a lot of our users come from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where still the connectivity has its own challenges. So in that case, you got to load some of the heavy loads bit later. When you load your site and content zippy, then he stays more because of his least attention span, and he kind of consumes more content, and that kind of increase the R2.
Great. Sachin would like to know from you. I mean, does a lot of video and you are very popular for your videos. Does that increase, extend the load time? How do you ensure that videos are actually not hindering the load time and the experience?
So I will say first credit goes to our editorial and production team who creates really good, attractive, and crisp media-rich content. Now to serve that content, we use third-party video hosting platform because we are a media company and not a technology company. But again, there are pros and cons of those platforms also. We use some caching technology at our end on server in combination with CDN and serving video with light video player like AMP video. This thing reflected in delightful user experience.
Great. My sister's favorite is what's in the bag, that actors and actresses come and show what is there in their bag. She is always hooked to it. Now, coming to you, Sankalp, I don't go off Sportskira during the transfer season. I got to know from your website that my favorite club, Arsenal, has indeed signed a 23-year-old good talent. But tell me something, it must be true that you witnessed significant surge, say, for example, for the football fans during the transfer season, or for the cricket fans whenever there is an IPL or a match going on. How do how big a role does tech play to handle these spikes?
Definitely. Yeah, Irvin, first of all, thanks for visiting the platform. I think it's loyal users like you who are building our business and helping encourage our team as well. As for your question, I think the cost for poor performance is extremely real, and it's even more prominent when you're facing surges in traffic, legitimate surges in traffic, which we do. So it's be it football transfer season or IPL season or wrestling, some important events happening in wrestling, boxing, Olympics, right? So I think there are two layers of optimization that we really do. So first is the baseline performance. How does your website perform when there is absolutely no load, right? And the peak performance. So how does it scale up once it is seeing 100 million hits every day, right? So I think we use a mix of strategies there. It could be load testing. It could be on-page profiling. Thankfully, we have very good tools for profiling front-end performance like Google's Lighthouse and other things. We try to ensure that we are ranking almost 100 in all of the metrics there. And just sticking to the basics, I think that's what's really important there. And thankfully, we see very good results.
Great. Thank you, Sankalp. Mark, would you like to, we would like to know from you, what is it that your customers expect EDGIO to deliver? How will implementing this technology that you offer help the publishers?
One of the things that I haven't heard discussed yet, although almost, especially what Mohammed was talking about, is the effect of page speed on the bottom line. It could be conversion, but it can also be search engine ranking. About a year and a half ago, I think, Google started ranking based on Core Web Vitals, which is CLS, LCP, and FID. And so one of the dimensions of making a site fast is making fast enough to appease Google so that it ranks you above your competitors. It's kind of a zero-sum game there. And so one of the value propositions of EDGIO is it's a full stack platform for hosting and accelerating your site. It's both a CDN and a serverless cloud for scaling your site out horizontally so that it can deal with traffic surges. And part of what you can do with the platform is monitor in real time how changes to your site affect those Core Web Vitals scores. One of the pain points of dealing with Core Web Vitals is that if you use PageSpeed Insights to get the field data for Core Web Vitals, it lags by 28 days. Like, can you imagine as a developer, you compile something and then only 28 days later, you know if it failed to compile or not? That would be brutal. So what EDGIO does is we give you a RUM library that runs on your site that tells moments after you deploy whether those core metrics are going up or down, and it allows you to iterate very quickly. So basically what we try to do is empower a small understaffed team of developers, as all developer teams are, to do amazing things and to deliver a very fast, robust experience that outcompetes your competitors with respect to stability, reliability, speed, security, et cetera.
Great. Great. Thank you, Mark. Before I go to the next question, Subodh Fadnis has asked a question, and I would like any of the panelists to answer him. He is asking, how does page speed affect conversion? Who would like to take it? Anybody?
Maybe I'd like to go for it.
Sure, Sankar, please.
Yeah, so I think sometimes it really helps to draw analogies of your digital businesses, because these are all virtual businesses. Yeah, it's kind of a metaverse out there. So think of your website's first FCP, or first contentful pane, as the doorway to your physical store, and everything from that point on is navigating to the aisle. So if your door is shut or choked because of a narrow entry, your customer can never really reach the aisle and purchase anything, right? So that's the first level of it. And once you're in, you also need to make sure that your aisles are sufficiently stocked and they have sufficient space for the customers to navigate around and pick what they want, right? Which means having a very excellent experience while navigating, and also while switching things, because a lot of your users are going to be power users. In fact, the people who make the most amount of money are going to be your power users, and they will be shuffling through things very rapidly. So how do you ensure that all of those things stay aligned at all times? So I think with this analogy, it's really easy to understand how it impacts your conversion rates and revenue thereby.
I can add to that an interesting perspective.
Correct. Sure, Mark.
A lot of the work that our company has done over the years has been particularly in e-commerce, so where you're shopping for products to buy. And the intuitive answer to that question would be, make sure the checkout experience is very slick and fast. And in fact, that's actually a misunderstood answer, I would say, maybe a wrong answer. And that what we found is that conversion is more affected by the browsing experience actually than the checkout experience. People finding the thing they want to purchase and being able to quickly, as if you were in a physical store, look through a bunch of things without an impedance on that process. So I would say don't underestimate the effect of search engine ranking on conversion and the effect of speed on search engine ranking. And then the friction that you're putting in front of the user when they're trying to browse around to figure out, comparing products, figuring out which one to buy. Those two things are often underappreciated when it comes to conversion. It's not just checkout. In fact, those two other things I think are even more important.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. Now I would like to know from each one of you, from the point of view of your publication, how important is, or the regional markets that for your business, or vernacular languages, for example, for your publication's business point of view, are you witnessing a significant rise in consumption of content in native languages? Karan?
We only deal in native languages. We are not we are always been in native language, and it has seen a significant growth over the past few years at least. I think there's a good amount of growth in that language space, but it is also technically challenging, because again, your devices get more and more cheaper, your internet gets more and more dull. It gets more and more difficult for us to make sure that first click is dusted. People enter, as Sankal rightly pointed out, a wonderful analogy he gave. People enter the site at least. If they don't enter the site, where are we going to go? What are we going to show them? Once they enter, then there is a lot of interaction. And then don't disturb them. And I think a lot of times in a regional space, people don't want to be disturbed. So even a pop-up, even this, they don't want. So any wall you create, an ad wall you create, or you create any wall, that's one doesn't matter. They will take the first exit out.
Great. Sankalp, what's your take on this?
Definitely, I think very well put by Karan there. So I think all of these factors matter extremely high, because it's not your website is way bigger than a physical store. It's not built for a few thousand or 100,000 customers. It is to serve millions and millions of people. So the economy of scale really needs to scale for you, right? So any interruption you put, so if you're reducing a performance by 0.1%, you're reducing 0.1 of 100 million effective page views, right? So I think you need to keep that scale in mind.
Right. Sachin?
I would say English text content is mostly read by tier 1 and 2 cities, but graphical and video content is popular everywhere. So people are more tend to read the content in their native language. And if we cater regional content, this will increase the average time on page factor, definitely because of time required to read in addition to watching the content. And recently we are experiencing the growth. We recently launched telugu.pinkvilla.com to Telugu audience, and we are seeing a massive growth in that. And yes, definitely it's working.
Yeah, I'm saying, you said graphic content and video content, it gets very popular the more you go deeper into the country. But does the internet also not fall flat when you go deeper into the country? So how do you serve your customers with video and graphic content deeper into the country? What's the way of keeping it optimized there?
So as I said earlier, we are using mostly caching technologies, using CDN, and we are keeping ready content to serve. When request hits, we are serving the content, whether it is a even 2D network or 3D network. So it works well.
Great. Mohammad, what's your take? How important is the consumption of content in regional languages? You operate Lokmat, which is significantly strong there.
Yeah, so we are kind of one of the biggest regional players out there. But this is like, what we have currently is only the 50%. The next 400 million users who are going to go on board, come on board, we're going to have different set of scaling challenges. So, to cater that, we have to make sure that the content loads faster. We have to keep in mind that a lot of those users are going to come from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and that way we have to keep the stack lean and delivering great content.
Mark, can you highlight some use cases basically to explain the outcome of EDGIO technologies for publishers when they implemented it?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we really focus on speed. Browsing speed, making things feel as if you're physically attached to a newspaper. How fast you can flip through a newspaper. One of the challenges there, to go back to the first question that you asked me, that separates India, I think, from the US, is that India has these regional languages, and the US has this wonderful blessing of everybody being on one language. And it really helps the internet platforms, because if you think about, let's say I need to publish in 10 languages, you're essentially splitting your cache 10 times. And so the way that you make a site fast is you cache content, you cache it near the users. If you have to split the cache 10 times, a user is 10 times more likely to have a cache miss, maybe, unless you have a very expansive network that takes advantage of the regionality of the languages. So if you have a pop in every city, well, chances are people in one city focus more on one language versus people in another city focus on a different language. And so that is how EDGIO helps make these sites faster. By having an extensive network of POPs. We have over 120 or so global POPs. We have quite a few in India around population centers spread around nicely. And so by giving developers the tools to make the most of the cache and giving them the network that also makes the most of the cache and not penalize you for publishing your articles in multiple different languages. And so I think that's the outcome that people want, is that they want the dynamic or the varied content that you would get when you have thousands of articles published and published across many different languages. And they want that without the penalty of speed. And so we think we give the tools to the developers to be able to do that.
Great. Now, we have another question, and I would take it here and then move on with my set of questions. Vipin is asking, we have our website, which is very slow. Can we improve the web page content? Basically he's asking, what is it that they can improve for the content to display seamlessly? Mark, would you like to take it?
Sure. So the first most basic thing is make sure that you're producing content in a cacheable way. The biggest way to go from a 5-second load time to a 500 millisecond load time is deliver it from the cache more often. Maybe that sounds like a basic thing, but it's super, super important. It's the most impactful thing you can do. Second, I would say Google is giving you both a carrot and a stick with Core Web Vitals. They really are good measurements for determining how fast the user would perceive your site. And I would say of the one to focus on, it's the FCP, LCP metric. Like basically when that hero image loads above the fold, that's when the user perceives the site to be done loading. You could still be doing a bunch of stuff below the fold. You could have little things loading and around that centerpiece, but that centerpiece is really how the user perceives the speed of the site, and that'll choose whether or not they continue on the site or move on elsewhere. So those are the things I would focus on: caching, and FCP Core Web Vitals.
Great. Another question I'll take here. Arpan Ganju is asking, what about Google page performance? So Sankalp, Karan, anybody wants to take it?
So on Google page performance here, there are negatives and positives to going through the whole insight. See, first of all, you have to manage monetization also. It's not like we can say no to every revenue item there. So I believe in the mantra which I already told, and with the Google page insights. One is FCP, then there is a time to interactive, and then there's the CLS. Three things. Don't move these three things. They have to be in the green all the time.
Correct. Great. Sankalp, you want to add something to it?
Sure. So I think if you're having a hard time understanding the page speed insights, right, because of all the third parties that we'll be adding, I think it would really help to just strip down your page to bare content, get it all the way to 100 page speed, and then add all those things on top of it. That way you'll know that you've controlled what you could control, and rest of the things are just needed for marketing, sales, whatever.
Great. I'm really grateful to all the questions that are coming in. Thank you very much for the effort of putting in the questions. Now I would like to know again, from each one of you, what is the process of taking a decision related to technology? Are those decisions always long term, as we were discussing about CMS? So how did you decide on the CMS, and how open are you to actually change it if a better page is made available before you? Karan, would like to start with you.
We have our own CMS. We don't actually, it's easier to maintain because the amount of editors we are, and our editors are across India. And again, limited to technology, again, limited to internet, because we are regional. Most of our editors also in regional, or writers are regional. So we have to look at the CMS, and we have to make sure. So we have a customized CMS, not even WordPress. We do use a customized CMS for ourselves. Becomes difficult to use an open source CMS or a different kind of CMS, one which we can customize to. So we have built it from scratch so that even from mobile, users can upload, our editors and writers, especially our users of the CMS, can upload the stories faster, load the images faster, upload their videos faster. So we kind of stick to a customized CMS. I have normally stick to a customized CMS, but earlier I think another era, maybe when I was in ZA networking, maybe it was WordPress, because it's easier for teaching, and that's where it's easier for taking. And I think there we could have thought about going through another customized CMS or some other service where it's easier to move the CMS to. But I think Sankalp rightly pointed out there's a pain to move data from one CMS to another, and considering we're an old website, the huge amount of stories and moving all those stories and then managing redirections and managing everything is like, it's a task.
Yeah, and each time you move from one database to another, the image sizes go all over the place. The caption looks like headlines. Yes,
no,
we have
also data correction, validity, all this comes into play. We are actually around 15-year-old site putting our cross data. So 15, 16-year-old site managing so much of data and making sure the migration happens. I think requires a huge amount of heart from a CTO to do that.
Yeah, Sankalp,
risk.
We would like to take on from where Karan ended.
We did that migration. It took us about a year. We have stars to show for it, but we are glad we did it at this point, because the amount of control we have, it made sense. Also, it also amounted to a very exciting engineering exercise, which engineers like us enjoy, right? So we first wrote a little bridge so that whatever we are sending to WordPress also gets replicated elsewhere in real time. Then we wrote jobs to sync data for all the past posts and whatnot. Then we switched the APIs to start running from the new database. So like all those step-by-step processes. And eventually, when we were confident that like everything is working as expected, we made the switch for a small fraction of traffic. But I think back to your question, Anirban, like are organizations ready for the switch? I think you should never say never, because new things come up all the time, and oftentimes if you're blindsided by something new, which might actually add a lot of value to your business, you are actually missing out on a very good opportunity there. So it definitely helps to be aware of what all is happening in this space, what are the new tools and technologies available, and make a call there. What does the cost benefit analysis look like?
Correct. Sachin?
I will say editor use whatever CMS they are comfortable, maybe ready-made Drupal or WordPress, or it may be custom. But I will say always keep CMS and front-end decoupled. So the plugins and code which get used for CMS will not slow down or hamper the front-end serving. And process data and store in advance. So whenever request hits the server, just serve it without processing. And use caching as much as possible, specifically in memory caching or some caching tools. That's it.
Great, Mohammed. Your take. The question actually is, what is the process of implementing a technology, and how open are you to actually call for a change?
Yeah, so when we started, we made a choice how extensible our CMS should be in 5-year term and 10-year term. That kind of shaped our technology stack decision. But in digital as well as media tech, you have to be flexible and open about exploring technologies. So if anything new comes up with a better KPI, wholeheartedly we'll be gravitating towards it. So as Sachin said, it's about on the user request, you should not make too much of a decision. You should give the content as early as possible, so that he kind of interacts with the content, consumes the content, and move forward. So anything in recent times, we kind of played with another CMS, which is kind of working only on the web stories front. So we kind of adapted that, off-the-shelf software. So we kind of adapted it and incorporated it. That way, our CMS and delivery technology is flexible, that we can incorporate any of the other open source or off-the-shelf software, and delight our users that way.
Mark, you have heard, over the last couple of questions, the importance of going deeper into India. And the moment we say deeper into India, I mean, all the CTOs will agree that they fear patchy internet. So can EDGIO, can you mention about the technologies that can actually help in ensuring the website loads equally faster when you go deeper into the country to a say patchy internet zone?
We have a little bit of a secret weapon in that case. I mean, we do all the things that you would expect, like having regional POPs, having a lot of cache space utilizable. We give developers tools to make sure that the pages individually are as cacheable as possible. Like, for example, being able to ignore tracking query parameters when defining the cache key for a page, so that if your story gets linked from Instagram or Pinterest and it puts in some unique tracking parameter, it doesn't make that a cache miss for every user that clicks on that link. But our secret weapon is actually prefetching. So one of the things that EDGIO makes it easy to do is, as the user's navigating around a page and links get scrolled into the viewport, we can prefetch that content and store it locally on the phone, so that if they tap on that link, that transition is instant, even if their internet is not super fast, because that fetching is happening in the background. And so the latency is not that important at that point. So it's one thing to make the site fast when you transition from Google or wherever you're coming from, but we also try to make the browsing experience fast by staying basically 1 click ahead of the user, or 5 seconds ahead of the user as they're browsing around. So I think EDGIO is in a pretty unique place to facilitate that kind of innovation by our users, because it's a CDN that understands all the way down to the application level what some of the modern frameworks are capable of. And that is what separates it, I think, from some other CDNs, in that the EDGIO CDN actually understands how Next.js works, how Vue and Nuxt work, how certain CMSs work, and can help you optimize for those specific tools, depending on what your technology choice is.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. This is the point where I get very nervous, because I suddenly have so many questions in front of me, and the ticker is saying I don't have that much time. Mr. Ramesh has asked, and this is one question I would like any of you to answer. Mr. Ramesh Nagarajan, he's asking, we have a use case to show the video on banner, but unfortunately we are facing the performance issue. What is your recommendation? Any specific solution for that in terms to optimize the video?
Yeah, I think if at all, if it is a ad related video, probably you could use YouTube to deliver that video. That way you kind of offload the video delivery to YouTube, and you kind of get it work. Also, if at all like if you have DFP solution, probably you can upload the video there and get it delivered rather than delivering by yourself.
So outsource the delivery mechanism instead of delivering by yourself. I hope that answers your question, Ramesh. Taking a simple question of optimizations, what is the best approach in terms of optimizations of web pages through server side, website, web technology side? Sankalp, would you like to take it?
Sure. I think as a new platform, like whenever you start out building a platform, you often miss the opportunity of caching things at different layers. So what I would recommend is cache things on every single layer. So our platform SportsKit has 4 layers of cache on almost every page, right? And it's just super efficient to do it that way, because not only are you can't beat the laws of physics. If your packets have to travel all the way from India where your servers are to US where your customers are, you just can't beat the speed of light and speed of the packet switching between routers, right? So so make sure that you are cached wherever you are, wherever your customers are, and cache at every layer. It could even be API caching, it could even be front-end caching, resource caching, whatever it is, just leverage it and leverage it smartly. And then probably if you want to serve dynamic content, hydrate it on load.
Correct. Mark, would you like to take that question? There is somebody asking, can you optimize through better UI?
Yeah, so I mean, to expand upon the previous answer, the answer is not server side and it's not client side. It's actually both, because server side rendering is critical to making something cacheable. If you have to wait for all the code to get downloaded onto a page in order to be able to show something, well, you're hosed. You'll never make that site fast. But then the moment that the user starts browsing around and looking at other things, if you have to reload that page, even from a cache that's nearby, that's a lot slower than re-rendering it entirely on the client, especially with data that you've already pre-fetched. And so there are tools that are taking over the web that are these isomorphic JavaScript frameworks like Next.js, Nuxt.js, even Angular. SvelteKit is a great one for publishers. It's the fastest of all of them, where basically you run the same JavaScript on the server and cache the result for the initial page load that you'd be running in the client for all the subsequent browsing. And so if you were to pick a technology to really optimize the experience and the speed, but balance that with interactivity, I would choose one of those headless technologies. Next.js is probably the most popular one, but Vue is very popular as well. Nuxt is the framework for Vue, and Svelte is super, super fast. So I think choosing a technology that can run both on the server and the client to optimize for both experiences is very important.
Great. To make website faster, is company ready or in a position to move to other technology or CDN partner? Sachin? This is a question from Mr. Amit Pal.
Nowadays, most of the CDN are really optimized. So we should to find out what is the reason to change the CDN. So we can achieve that thing with existing CDN, then why to change CDN? If we are not getting that functionality with CDN, then we can change, right?
Great, great. This is the last question I'm taking. I'm really sorry to all of you, the questions that I could not address today. My sincere apologies, but that's the time that I have with this gentleman today. This is a question from Bhavna Diwan, and she's asking, how can we optimize third-party tools like Google Analytics or Tag Manager, etc.? Anybody? Karan, you want to take it?
So GTM also takes a lot of time. I know that's the biggest thing of GTM. GTM takes a lot of load time, a lot of interactive time also. The best thing is, most of the hits on GTM, clean up your GTM first of all. Always have this idea of cleaning up GTM, because a lot of tags remain there and they are remaining there for life. So you have to have a process of clearing your GTM all the time. So that is what is hampering your GTM. The other thing is, you can mostly remove certain ad related things out of GTM so that you can load it later, because these things will only happen when the ad comes on the viewport, or these the viewport matters. The viewport is the most essential part of your thing. If your first contentful paint is fine, then it all depends on viewport. So everything other than that, the first view, everything else you can remove from GTM and try to push it from on load or after 10 seconds of load, because that is where it will be most of the time. So we can write a JavaScript of your own, or use any of the frameworks as Mark rightly pointed out, and that will help you gain a lot of traction there. Yeah.
Okay. One special request. This is the last question. I'm taking one more. Vishal Narvekar is asking, how do you analyze page speed and core web vitals? Sankalp, would you like to take it?
Sure. So I think a lot of the theory behind what these metrics mean, how you can improve them, what could be the potential causes for them being incorrect or poor in a specific case, are all listed down in the documentation of web.dev. If you're starting out, or even if you are an experienced developer, I highly encourage you to check it out, web.dev. It's a website maintained by Google. It's also open source. They take contributions from all over the world. And it is usually extremely relevant when it comes to answering all of these things, right? If you want to really do like a headfirst, like crash course into it, just go look at the tooltips, look at what the dropdown says, try to understand what it means. It's extremely built out at this point. Google's Lighthouse and other core web vitals things, they're extremely user friendly, developer friendly, and I think you just need to read through it and understand what it means.
Great. This brings me to the last part of this discussion. I am really grateful to the 120 participants who have actively participated in this conversation and shared their views. But here's the question that I would like us to sign off with. Going forward, say in the next 3 years, what is the biggest challenge that you foresee from technology point of view in the publishing business of our country? Also highlight the biggest opportunity. Sankalp, will start with you.
Sure. I think when it comes to opportunity, there's definitely, India is at that stage when it's still a growing market. So there are still a lot of new customers coming online all the time. It's not just the new kids; it's also the older people who are using their smartphones for the first time, right? And all of this is extremely mobile heavy. So make sure that whatever your strategy looks like, mobile is a large part of how you're moving forward, right? And I think always start with empathy, because all of these customers come from a different headspace, from a different background, and if you don't empathize with their needs and their primary motives of coming onto your platform, you will not be able to serve them effectively. If you want to make conversions, that if you want them to turn into your paying subscribers or newsletter subscribers or frequent visitors, you have to start with that empathy. And that's why companies like Google, they are piloting a lot of projects in India first, because it is such a complex geography, such a complex market to navigate, that they believe that if they've, for instance, their language model Lambda, if it works for India, it works for across the world. That's the kind of complexity we are dealing with here. So start with empathy and everything works backwards from there.
Mohammed, your take?
We all know we are at the exciting crossroads of our life, and obviously more and more users going to be on board who are more mobile and from tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Sachin?
So most of our users are generation Z, and those users are impatient nowadays. They want it instantly, immediately. It's like fast food. And we saw that example with TikTok and shorts, serving more and more video content, and that also blazing fast is a really challenge. And yes, there is an opportunity for subscription based model for the exclusive content.
Karan? The biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity.
The biggest opportunity is 5G, if we can roll out that well, because I think we're not rolled out 4G that well across regions, especially the regional sector, because our 4G in regional is as good as 2G. So I think that is the biggest challenge right now. Internet on wireless, internet or broadband is quietly stable that way, and that helps. But when it comes to mobile and especially internet in our regional spaces, it takes time. It's still dodgy. I think 5G will help reach somewhere some 3G to implement. So I think I'm hoping for a good opportunity on 5G when it gets implemented. And I think it'll help, especially being a video company. We thrive for video adaptability much faster. Being on text doesn't monetize that well nowadays, but if video monetizes, so we better make sure that video serves as well. So serving a video, adapting a video, that requires a lot of internet. I think that's the opportunity. 5G is the opportunity the system has. If they implement it well, I think we will be in good shape.
Correct. The spotlight is on you, Mark. We sign off with your concluding remarks.
Sure.
The biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity that you leave us with.
Yeah, I'll add maybe a different take on that is like everything is getting scarcer and the demand for internet content is boundless. You know, hiring high-tech people became super difficult in the last few years. Salaries went through the roof. Inflation is hitting everybody. And so finding a way to deliver all that content and continue to innovate where tech workers are harder to find, there's supply chain disruptions, all of that is going to present increasingly more challenges. The opportunity is literally just the boundless demand for internet commerce, internet content. It's only growing. And so, you know, there's a lot of opportunities for publishers, both broad and niche, to grow their customer base. And hopefully the proliferation of better technologies, 5G, et cetera, will you know, propel that on even faster.
Great. I would like to individually thank all the 116 participants that have stayed with us throughout the course of the discussion. Thank you very much for being with us through the last 1 hour. I hope the session was informative. I have learned a lot today thanks to Karan Jaitapkar, who is the head of digital at AVP Network, Mr. Mohammad Zulfikar Abram, CTO of Lokmat, Sachin Pawar, head of engineering at Pink Villa, Sankalp Sharma, CTO Sportskira, Mark Brocato, VP Engineering at EDGIO, and I'm Anirban Chaudhary signing off. Thank you very much, guys, for your time. Really grateful to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you, everyone.